We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Zayin Amud Aleph from Meseches Eruvin. This is Eruvin Daf 57a. The Gemara here again is addressing what does the Brisa mean when it says the Migrash, the open area that's outside the Arei HaLeviim, it's outside the cities of the Leviim. What does it mean that it's 1/4? So Abaya says we're talking about a city which is 1,000 square amos, meaning it's 1,000 by 1,000. And he says if you then measure the area of the Tchum that completely surrounds the city, you're going to have, in terms of how many squares of 1,000 by 1,000, meaning how many areas of 1,000 square amos are you going to have? You're going to have 24 of those areas. 24 areas which are each 1,000 square amos. And then how much migrash is there going to be? So dal arba de tchumen. Along the sides you're going to have 4, meaning again 4 squares of 1,000 by 1,000 amos. Vi arba de kronos, and you're only going to have 4 in the corners, because remember, even though there are 4 corners, 3/4 of those corners are not migrash. Only 1/4 of those corners are migrash. So only 4 of those are going to be there's going to be 4 in the corner that are 1,000 by 1,000. Kama have it. How much total migrash is there area wise? Tamanya, you have 8 squares of 1,000 by 1,000. So 8 out of 24. So the Gemara said that's still not a quarter. Tilzahavet, that's a third. 8 out of 24 is a third. So again, the Gemara does a similar answer that it did before. Misavrit beribua kamer. No, you're measuring this as though it was a square, but it's not a square. The city is a circle, and the migrash is a circle around it. Beigula kamer, we're talking about a circle. Kama meruba yeser ala igul. Again, how much is a square greater than a circle? Because we're going to subtract that amount. Revia, it's 1/4 bigger. So dal revia. Now subtract a quarter from 8. So originally you had 8 squares, but a quarter of 8 is going to be 2. 8 minus 2 is 6. Pasha luhushisa. There's actually only 6 1,000 square amos areas. Veshisa michav dalit, and 6 out of the total of 24 that we just had before. Rivahava, that comes out to 1/4. We'll just take a look at it again in the diagram just to explain. Again, this is talking about according to Abaya, this city over here is 1,000 by 1,000. So then we said that if you have 1,000 by 1,000, so how many areas of migrash are there? So again, you're going to have by the area of the migrash 1 area of 1,000 by 1,000 right here, 1 area of 1,000 by 1,000 here, 1 over here, 1 over here. That's your 4. Then you're going to have an additional 4 at the corners. Right over here, you're going to have, again, 1,000 by 1,000 area right in the corner, and then the rest is all going to be extra tchum area, sados and krumim, fields and vineyards. Same thing over here. You're going to have 1 corner of 1,000 by 1,000, and the rest is going to be sados and krumim, etc. So you're going to have a total of 8 all around. So the Gemara said that's 8 out of 24. And again, it was 24 because you have, in this area, you have 2 areas of 1,000 by 1,000. So 2, 4, 6, 8. And then in this area, you're going to have another 4. So 4, 8, 12, and 16. So a total of 16. So again, that was 16 plus 8 is 24. So that's why the Gemara originally said you had 8 out of 24. But then the Gemara says, no, you actually don't have a full square area of migrash. You got to make it a circle because the city is really a circle. So you subtract, it's really not going to be 8. It's really going to be 6. And again, 6 out of 24 is going to be a quarter. And the Gemara now is going to give 2 additional answers that are both going to be similar in terms of their concept. Ravina says, my Ravia, how do you calculate the quarter? Ravia de tchumen, only count the migrash that's in the tchumen areas, not the migrash that's in the corner. And that's talking, he's going back to our original conception that you had a city that was square, 2,000 amos by 2,000 amos. So in such a situation, again, you have migrash of 8 on the sides. That's 8 squares of 1,000 by 1,000. And again, we said the total area along the outside of the city was 32 squares of 1,000 by 1,000. 8 out of 32 is 1/4. And Ravashi says, my Revia de Kronos. Just look at the quarter. What's the quarter? It's the quarter of the corners. As we said, the corners, you only have 4 areas, and this is no matter what size the city is. You only have 4 areas that are 1,000 by 1,000, and the corners total themselves are 16 areas that are 1,000 by 1,000. That equals a quarter. We'll take a look at the diagram in a moment. We'll take a look first at Rashi. Ravino Amar Liolam Kidmei Kara. Go back to our original idea. B'Masa Merabos, we're talking about a square city with Trei Alfi at Trei Alfi, 2,000 amos by 2,000 amos. That's the size of the city. Tahavilu Tchumen Shitzar Ukronos Shitzar. In that thing, what we said was that the total area on the sides of the city is 16 1,000 square amos areas, and on the corners it's 16 1,000 square amos areas. Umigrash Minayo Tracer, we said the total open area was 12. But we're not looking at the total open area, we're only looking at the migrash at the sides. Umay Revia de Katani Bitchumen, we're only looking at the tchumen, not the corners. De Kamar Nimsa Migrash de Tchumen, Revia de Tchumen Ukronos. It comes out that the migrash along the sides is 1/4 of the total of all the tchumen and the kronos. The migrash de Tchumen Tamanya, because the migrash of the tchum is 8, Kiramina Meikara, like we said before, Vuriva de Tlasunu Train, and that comes out to 1/4 of 32. And Ravashi Nami Ravina Muki Lara. Ravashi also has the same idea as Ravina. B'masa meravasa de trei alfe a trei alfe. We're talking about a square city that's 2,000 amos by 2,000 amos. Umay nimsa migrash revia. What is it a quarter of? De katani hachikamar. Migrash de kronos. If you look only at the sides, and there's only 4 areas of 1,000 by 1,000, have a revia de kronos is a quarter of the total kronos. The shitzar de kronos have a revia hamigrash. The migrash is going to be 1/4 of the 16 1,000 by 1,000 squares that exists in the corners. We're going to have one other version of Rav Ashi, just slightly different. Lishna Achrina over here. Rav Ashi's really de'ein nozen migrash el kronos a year. It's not a calculation issue. Rav Ashi actually holds that migrash only applies to the corners of the city. You don't have migrash like we originally thought. Migrash is going around the entire city. According to the second, and in terms of the counting of a quarter, we're just looking at the corners. That's not now, according to the second version of Rashi, that's not what we're saying. We only actually have migrash. There's only open space in the corners. That's it. Elef al elef. It's always 1,000 by 1,000 square. It's in 1,000 square amos area at the corner, at each of the 4 corners of the city. Helkach liolam. Therefore, it doesn't matter how big the city is. Beinu gedola, beinu katana, whether the city is large or small. Migrash shala revia. It's always going to be a quarter of the corners. The liolam hakronos shitzar umigrash dalid, because the corners don't change size. The corners are always going to be 4 corners, each of 2,000 by 2,000. And always you're only going to have 1,000 by 1,000 of migrash, so it's always going to be a quarter of the space. You're going to have 1,000 square of each corner. It's going to be true. You're going to have 1,000 square amos out of a total of 2,000 square amos is always going to be 1/4 the size, because in 2,000 square amos you have again 4 quadrants of 1,000 by 1,000. We'll just take a look at the diagram here to show each answer. So again, we're going back to this original diagram where this is 2,000 by 2,000, and so in the first answer, in Ravina's answer, we're only counting the migrash that's at the sides. We're not looking at the corners at all. So if you look at the migrash at the sides, again, you have 8 quadrants of 1,000 by 1,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 8 out of a total, looking at the entire thing, 32. All of these, counting the corners and everything on the sides of the city, is 32. 8 out of 32 is a quarter. Rav Ashi says exactly the opposite. Look only, or we only actually have migrash right here, in this little corner here, this 1,000 by 1,000, or we're only looking right now in order to make the calculation at the 1,000 by 1,000. But the point is, this 1,000 by 1,000 area is 1/4 of this corner. Do it on every corner, it's the same thing. 1,000 by 1,000 here is a quarter of this entire corner. 1,000 by 1,000 here, a quarter of this corner. 1,000 by 1,000 here is a quarter of this corner. So the migrash of the corners is a quarter of all of the corners. So now the Gemara continues, and Ravina challenges Rav Ashi's explanation. Again, Rav Ashi's explanation is that when we say the migrash is 1/4, we're looking at the migrash only in the corners. So Amar le Ravina le Rav Ashi. Ravina says to Rav Ashi, v'hasaviv ksiv. But the pasuk, which is the whole basis for this whole idea, it says the word saviv. The migrash surrounds the city. According to you, the migrash is only in the corners. My saviv. So what does it mean, saviv? Saviv de kronos. Rav Ashi says, you know what saviv means? It means it's the around in the corners. Sometimes the word corner can also be considered saviv, around something. Dilo teimach. If you don't say that the word saviv can mean corner, what are you going to say in the following example? Gabe ola dechsiv v'zarku b'nei Aaron es adam al hamizbeach saviv. It says that they sprinkle the blood around the mizbeach. Now they don't sprinkle the blood around the entire mizbeach. Hachanami saviv mamish. Do you think it means they sprinkle around the entire mizbeach? No. Elamai saviv, saviv de kronos. What does the word saviv mean? It means saviv de kronos in that case. Hachanami my saviv, saviv de kronos. So too over here, it means the same thing. When it says the migrash is saviv, we're only referring to the migrash that is in the corners, not that it surrounds the entire thing. Amar le Rav Chavivi me Chozna le Rav Ashi. Now Rav Chavivi from Chozna says to Rav Ashi, Va'ika morsha de karnasa. What about the part of the city that sticks out when you squared it off? So the Gemara says, now b'masay gulta, we already said we're talking about a circular city. So the Gemara says, v'harivua, but didn't you square the city? So the Gemara says, Eimor damrinan chazinon keman demerava. We view it as if it's square in order to measure your tchum. Rivua v'adai mim ravina, but do you think we actually make it a square? That's not true. First we'll take a look at Rashi, then we'll take a look at the diagram one more time. Rashi says, V'hika morsha de kronos, l'mai damrin leil kama meruba yoser. The answers that we gave before, according to a few of the answers we gave before, we said, well, a square is more than a circle by a quarter, and therefore you have to say that the migrash is a little bit smaller, subtract a quarter. The midadin on migrash bigula, measure the migrash in a circular fashion. The Kasha Leila Rav Chaviva, so Rav Chaviva is saying, according to that answer, Kevan Detanya Merabe So'ir, Harehi Merubas, if we're already squaring a circular city, it is a square. V'chiyuava Migrash Be'igol Elef Savivla, so if you're going to put a Migrash circular around it, Nimtzu Kronos So'ir Ochlin B'socha Migrash, the corners of the city should stick into the Migrash, into the open area, Vein Kenegat HaKronos Elef Migrash, so you don't really have, in that area, you don't have the full 1,000 of open space. So the Gemara said, well, we're talking about a circular city, and the Gemara said, we view it as if it's a square, and that's in terms of measuring the tchum. That's in terms of halachas of walking on Shabbos or what you're giving to the Levium. We're not actually making it square. We're not adding houses to the city. That it should be minimizing or diminishing the beauty of the open space. So take a look at the picture again over here. Assuming we're talking about a circular city, so we said that the migrash is going to be a circle of 1,000 amos right around it. So the question is, well, if that's the case, what about the fact that we squared off the city? So aren't these corners sticking into the migrash? They're going to ruin the migrash. So the Gemara says, no, these corners, the Gemara is answering, these corners are just imaginary. There's no actual houses here. Why are we imagining these corners? Because we're going to measure the tchum, we're going to measure all the rest of the city for other purposes. Purposes of Shabbos, purposes of designing the outskirts of the city of the Levium. So that's just for measuring purposes. But in terms of the beauty of the open space, that's not going to be cut off by these corners. You're going to have a circular city, and you'll have a circular open space around it, and everything is just fine. And so now the Gemara finishes off with one more question. Amar le Rav Chaniloi me Chosno le Rav Ashi. Rav Chaniloi from Chosno asked Rav Ashi the following question. Michdi, let us see. Kama meruba yesra legal. Again, how much is a square larger than a circle? Revia, it's 1/4. We already explained that. If you have a square around a circle, so then you're going to have, let's say, the perimeter of the square. Let's imagine that the square had sides that are all the measurement of 1. So the perimeter is going to be 1, 1, 1, 1. It's going to be a total of 4. The circumference of the circle is going to be 3, because the diameter is 1, so it's pi d, so it's going to be 3 if you assume that pi is 3, so it's 1/4 more. That's what the Gemara calls 1/4 more. If the circumference of the circle is 3, the perimeter is going to be 4. Now, if you take that math, so let's try to figure out a different part of what we said earlier. It says, Hani Tamni Meya. We said that when you extend the corners of the city, you're adding on 800. That's not really true. Shisma'a v'shisin v'sheva nechitilsav. It's actually going to add up to 667 subtracted by 1/3. Rashi over here explains what the question is. Rashi says, Hani chesmeos bitmia dekatani la'el nimtzu techumen mistakron b'meshi nachnu tavla balachson. We said that if you have a circular city and you put a tablet, a square around it on top of it in order to add on to it, you're going to gain a little bit of space in the corners. You're going to get more than your 2,000 amos. How much are you going to gain total? Ches meos amma. You're going to gain 800 amos. So he says if it's only 1/4 more, why is there an added amount of the diagonal? That's because of the square. The davar igol ein lo alachson, because something that's a circle obviously has no diagonal. V'hamaruba yesh lo alachson, and when it's square, you have that extra diagonal. V'kama maruba yosra igol. Now, how much did we say the math was? We said how much is a square larger than a circle? Revia by 1/4. Urevia aisu alom milavar shuchelik shlishi milagav. As we said, you calculate the quarter from the larger number. It's really 1/3 if you'd be calculating it from the circle itself. So therefore, v'hani shisma v'shisin v'sheva nechi tilsa damsava dainu tilsa dalpayim. If you do 1/3 of 2,000, so in other words, if you take the normal 2,000 area of the tchum, and now we're adding on 1/4, which is really the same as adding on 1/3, 1/3 of 2,000 is going to be this number, 667 minus 1/3. So what he's asking is as follows. If you take a look at the diagram, we said in the Gemara that, again, from here to here is obviously 2,000. That's your normal tchum. The Gemara said that from here to here, if you take what's been added on by squaring this off, how much have we gained? The Gemara said you're gaining an extra 800. What that meant was that if this is 2,000, this area here is going to be, this line over here is going to be 2,800, so 800 more. So now the Gemara is saying one second. If it's 1/4 more, so what you should do, that's 1/3 of 2,000. 1/4 is the same thing as 1/3 of the smaller number. So if it's 2,000 here, you should be taking 1/3 of 2,000. 1/3 of 2,000 is not 800. So the Gemara answers, Amar le, Rav Ashi said back to him, Hani mili bigula migo ribua. When we talk about 1/4, when we talk about 1/4 difference, again, 1/4 of the square, meaning 1/3 of the circle, when we talk about that, that's in terms of the circle within the square. Avo balachsona bino tfei. But when it comes to the diagonal, you're actually gaining a little more than that. Diyomar mar, because the master said, Kol amsa beribua, every amma that's in a square, amsa utrechom shi balachsona, actually adds up to about an amma and 2/5 in the diagonal. And Rashi over here explains, Hani mili hu deravia yoser alav. When we talk about a square being bigger than a circle, vesulo by a quarter, Hani mili bigula denafik migo rivua, kiamrin ravia hani mili bialma, kol hecha da'iri beigol hanasa mitoch hamaruba. Anytime you have a situation, a circle within a square, zeharibua yoser ala igol shanu oskin b'midas hachalal kulo. When you're talking about the total area of the square, or maybe the area of the perimeter versus the circumference, how much larger is the square? Kamo niskar kol hachalol. Whether you look at the area, whether you look at the circumference and the perimeter, whatever you want to look at, how much bigger is the square than the circle? Lo niskar el revi. It's going to be about a quarter bigger. Shareir agula alpayim hekefa vav alpayim. So, for example, Rashi says, let's say you have a circular city which has a diameter of 2,000. So then the circumference is going to be 6,000. That's what we said in the first parak, that pi is 3. And if you look at a square city that's put up on top of or over that circular city, so the perimeter is going to be 8,000, because again, you're going to have 2,000 times 4. So that's why it's a quarter larger, meaning a quarter if you're measuring from the perspective of the square. So if 8,000, a quarter of 8 is going to be 2. Subtract 2, it goes down to 6. Or you could say a third of the circle. 1/3 of 6 is 2 again, and add 2 to 6, you get to 8. The same thing is going to be true in the area. If you would calculate the area of the circle and the area of the square that is around the circle, it's going to be about a quarter difference. That's what the Rabbanan said. But when it comes to the diagonal, you want to know how much longer is the diagonal. We want to know how much larger is the diagonal because we made it a square. That's actually more than a quarter. Rashi says an interesting way of understanding this math. The entire square, all of the additional space is being put into that corner. In the middle, you're not getting any extra space out of the square. That's always 2,000. All that extra quarter is all going into the corner. Much less is going on the other sides. Therefore, the diagonal is more than the quarter. What Rashi here means to say is that if you wanted to measure, let's say this circle, right? So you put a square around the circle, and you want to say how much extra space is being added on from here to here, right? So how much, or another way to say it is, if we looked at the radius from the center of the circle to here, and then we looked at the center of the circle to there, how much extra space is there? Rashi's pointing out, the square that we're adding, all the space is being added into the corner. The entire space here is being added there's nothing being added at the sides. We're only adding at the corners. So that's going to be more than a quarter, because that's where all the extra space is. If you measure the entire circle and the entire square, it's going to come out that the square is about a quarter larger than the circle. But if you measure the added space from the difference between from the center to here, the radius, and the center all the way to the corner, that's going to be more than a quarter. And that's what the Gemara points out. The Gemara really is giving you a Pythagorean theorem type of idea. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. But the way the Gemara phrases that is kol amsa beribua. If you have an amma at the sides, it's amsa utrei chumshi. It's an amma in 2/5. So again, going to here, the way the Gemara is phrasing the Pythagorean theorem is if this were an amma and this were an amma, right? So if you had a perfect a square amma over here, then the diagonal here would be an amma in 2/5. Okay, so that's another way of saying, an approximation really, of the Pythagorean theorem, that if you have A squared plus B squared, it equals C squared. That's what the Gemara is really saying over here. And then, of course, you just figure out how much additional, what is that extra 2/5, and divide it up into the two sides. That's how you're going to get the extra space in the corners. And the Gemara now continues with the Mishnah. We mentioned this Mishnah previously. The Mishnah says, Nosn and Karfef lo'ir divrei Rabbi Meir. According to Rabbi Meir, when you measure the 2,000 amos as the tchum of the city, you don't measure from the walls of the city or for the edge of the city. You actually measure from about 70 amos out from the city. That's the karfef that you give to the outside of the city. That forms the border of the city. The Chachamim say, Lo amru karfef ela bein shtei ayaros. The rule of karfev is only to merge together two cities. If you have two cities that are close together, then you give the space of a karfev or two karfevs. We'll see in the Gemara. But you give that space and you say if they're close enough together, we'll merge them into one city. But you don't measure. Let's say you have an individual city not close to any other cities. Then you measure the tchum from the border of the city. You don't give an additional karfev and then measure from there. Mishnah then continues. If you have two cities, each one has a space of a karfev. Osa karfev es shtein lios echad. That karfev can merge the two together and they become like one city. V'chein gimel kfarim hamishulashin. Let's say you have three cities, and the Gemara is going to explain exactly the design of how these three cities are situated. But if you have again three cities, emyesh bein shnayim chitzonim meyo v'arboim v'achas u'shlish. Again, if you have two karfevs of space between the outer cities, asa emtzai es shloshton lios echad. That middle city can merge all three cities together, become like a bridge, and they all form into one city. Gemara over here says, Menani Mili, where do we know this? Amar Rava says, the Amar Kar, the pasuk says, Mikir ha'ir v'chutza, from the wall of the city and the outside. Amra Torah tein chutza v'yachakach madud. The idea here is you have to give it an outside, and then you measure from over there. Rashi over here says, tein chutza, karfeif, it means you have to give a karfeif. That's again Rabbi Meir's opinion, that you measure from the karfeif, not from the outside of the city. The Chachamim say the purpose of karfeif is to merge two cities together. Itmar, it was learned, the Machlokas Amoraim. Rav Huna Amar Nosnin, Karfev Lazu, Karfev Lazu. We mentioned this earlier as well. Rav Huna holds it's a Karfev for each city. So in order to merge the two cities, you have to give two Karfevs. If there's more than two Karfevs, then you can't merge them into one city. But if it's two Karfevs, then you can merge them together. Chia Barav Amar Karfev Achas L'Shtein. Chia Barav says, no, it's just basically 70 amos between each city. One Karfev of space between them, that allows them to merge. More than that, it's going to be a problem. The Gemara says, Tanan, let's look at our Mishnah itself. It says the word karfeif here, which implies one karfeif between two cities. Tiyofta de Rav Huna, that seems to refute Rav Huna, who says it's two karfeifs. Amar lach Rav Huna, my karfeif, Torah's karfeif. The word karfeif here doesn't mean one single karfeif. It means the law of karfeif, but it's one for each city. Uliolam karfeif lazu, v'karfeif lazu. It's going to be a karfeif for each city. The Gemara says, Hachinam mistaber. That makes sense, because keep reading the Mishnah. It says if each one has 70 amos and a bit, then you merge them together. Shma mina. So that actually seems to show like Chia Barav said that it's two karfefs, not one karfef. So the Gemara, that seems to show like Rav Huna says that it's two karfefs and not one karfef. So Leima Tiavet Yufta de Chia Barav. Let us say that this is a refutation of Chia Barav who says it's one karfef. So Amar la Chia Barav. Chia Barav will respond to you, and we'll see his response in the next video. And we'll see his response in the next video on Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis.